As we all know, China is one of the largest and fastest growing economies in the world, and it presents a vast market for business looking to expand their reach. However, with this opportunity comes a unique set of challenges, particularly when it comes to food compliance. The Chinese government has strict restrictions in place to ensure the safety and the quality of food products sold in the country. So that is why it's so important for business to understand these regulations and comply with them. Not only is it a legal requirement, but it's also essential for building trust with the Chinese customers. During this webinar, you will learn the current regulatory framework for food in China, including recent changes and updates that are crucial for business to understand. You will also get practical insights and advice on avoiding common pitfalls through the real case analysis. On top of this, we will tap into the major compliance aspects such as labeling, formula, and key parameters to ensure your product meets all the requirements. I'm super excited to introduce you our speaker, Daisy. She has over 10 years of experience in the food research and development and compliance work, especially possessing experience in the research and development of infant formula, food, beverage products, and well-versed in food-related laws and regulations. She has successfully delivered top-notch product compliance services to numerous domestic and international companies. Meanwhile, she is highly skilled in handling registration and filing procedures for special foods, new food ingredients, novel food additives, varieties, etc. So sit back, relax, and ready to learn. We hope that you will find this webinar informative and valuable. Let's give the floor to Daisy.
Hello, dear online friends and partners. This is Daisy from ZMUni. Glad to meet you guys online. It's a great honor to give such a webinar online, and thank you for spending an hour watching this live streaming webinar. My topic today is an essential regulatory guide to bring food product into China with best practice and pitfalls to avoid. China is a big market for food products. The government of China continues to highlight food safety as a priority area. Many difficulties and challenges exist. Maybe you are thinking about exporting food to China. I believe this webinar can give you some ideas to help you make a better decision. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask in the chat box. I will answer it after the webinar. I divided the content into 4 parts. First of all, with the introduction of the related regulators responsible for food safety supervision in China, we will get a basic ideas of what departments we will be communicating with. Secondly, I will introduce the regulatory frameworks of imported food in China and share some official databases for your reference. You can get the related regulations or standards through them. I think it's beneficial for you although the documents are in Chinese. The third part, the product classification, is an important step before confirming its compliance. And fourth, it's the compliance key parts and the case analysis. Sorry. Let's get started with part 1. In China, food safety supervision is coordinated by multiple departments. China's State Council has set up a food safety commission to oversee food safety. Under the State Council, there are mainly 4 departments related to food safety. They are State Administration for Market Regulation. It's SAMR for short. And National Health Commission, NHC, and Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, MARA, and General Administration of Customs of China, JCC. SAMR is responsible for the comprehensive coordination of China's food safety system, the development of major food safety related laws, policies, and regulations, the implementation of domestic market inspection, and also the registration of special foods. So if you want to find some regulations about products in the market or supervision data, SAMR website is your choice. In the food safety regulatory system, NHC is mainly responsible for food safety risk assessment. NHC formulates and implements food safety risk monitoring plans in collaboration with SAMR and other departments. NHC develops most national food safety standards and also holds the primary responsible for the approval of novel food, new food additive, and new food related products. So if you want to find some food safety standard and novel food substances information, NHC website or its database is very useful. Then the JCC is primarily concerned with public security and border protection. It's also very important regulator for imported food. Import and Export Food Safety Bureau under GACC is responsible for registration foreign manufacturers. From January 1st, 2022, all foreign manufacturers that produce food should be registered in GACC before exporting food to China. GACC is also handles food and agricultural quarantine and inspection at the ports and manages import and export policies. MARA is the last one. It is responsible for regulating the quality and safety of edible agricultural products produced domestically. It's from planting and breeding products to wholesale and retail markets, but before delivery to food processor. For the food part, MARA regulates agricultural biotechnology regarding the novel food additive derived from biotechnology or the genetically modified food additive. NHC holds the primary responsibility for the approval and the decision whether MARA's technical expert needs to access the biosafety of this product. MARA also develops national standards for the quality of pesticide and also its residue limit and test methods. We have a basic idea of the regulators. Then let's see how are the regulatory frameworks and how to find the wanted regulations or standards. This This slide outlines the frameworks of China's food regulations. Many people see China's food regulation system is like a tree. Food safety law and other laws are the fundamental laws of this system, just like the trunk of a tree. Many branches will be derived from the trunk, just like those detailed regulations, rules, and measures. They are developed to guide the implementation of laws. The last is the standards and the government announcements are the smaller unit of this system, like the leaves of a tree. They provide more detailed requirements for the products, such as the labeling standards. This slide isolated some laws, regulations, and measures. Relatively, these regulatory documents are used commonly. It's for your reference. The national food safety systems, the national food safety standards are mandatory standards. They apply to both domestic and imported food products. In 2022, China issued 36 new food safety national standards and revised 3. China has issued over 1,300 national food safety standards and has established the National Food Safety Standard Framework. And it still keeps developing food safety standards to meet the development of the food industry. I provide some databases or websites where you can get the related regulatory documents. These databases are all in Chinese, so it may be difficult for those unfamiliar with Chinese to use them. But I think it's still useful if you want to find the related regulation by yourself. You can find the laws and the regulations via the National Database of Laws and Regulations. You can find the measures via the official website of different regulators. That is like NHC, SAMR website. You can find the standards via these 3 different standard databases, like database of food safety national standard, database of food safety local standard. Then let's move on to see how to use those regulations on our products. The third part, the food classification. It's a very important step before confirming its compliance. Let's see, why do we need to classify when checking our food compliance? After knowing the food classification, we can find and check administrative measures on the detailed product and prepare related documents. And find and check the suitable product standards. Find and check how to use ingredients, food additives, and nutritional fortification. And find and check the limit requirements of contaminant, mycotoxin, pathogen, and so on. I believe you have heard of Blue Hat, the special mark of health food, such a product is similar to what you might think of as dietary supplements or food supplements. It belongs to food and it's classified as special food. According to food safety law, special foods are under strict regulation. Special food include health food, infant and young children formula, food for special medical purpose. It's FSMP for short. At the end of last year, ZMUni released a guide to the labeling of food for special medical purpose, FSMP, and gave a new special mark to this product. We can call it a little blue flower. Then what about the strict regulation? For example, health food needs registration or notification before being imported into China. There's another term you may have heard of, foods for special dietary uses. Its scope is different from that of special foods. Special foods are used regarding the regulation. And food for special dietary uses is used in food standards. This is a product category regarding standards conception. Currently, foods for special dietary uses include infant and young children formula, FSMP supplementary food for infant and young children, and sports nutrition food. But it excludes health food. Then how to classification correctly? Here I give 4 steps. Step 1, we select all the product information like ingredient list, brief product process, product appearance, and also the consumption methods. Let me take a liquid product as an example. We found it's liquid and ready to drink, so it may be a beverage or milk. Then we collect possible product standards and also general standards to check classification in detail. Then we find the modified milk should contain not less than 80% of milk. 80% of milk, according to the GB 25191, the product standard of modified milk. But the content of milk in this product is 50%. So modified milk is not suitable. But it is suitable for beverage containing milk, as its dietary protein accounts for 1% of the total weight. This point complies with the requirement stipulated in GBT 21732, the standard for beverage containing milk. In the last step, according to the preliminary judgment of product category, we can know other requirements of this product, like the labeling requirements, the usage of food additive, and so on. Please note, every general standard has its food classification. Also, some are the same. You should use the corresponding rule of food classification in the corresponding standards. For example, if you want to check the compliance of the use of food additive, you should use the rule of the food classification in GB 2760, the standard for the use of food additive, not any standards. Here is the food classification is GB 2760. There are 16 food categories. They also have subcategories or subcategories. They may have different requirements, so please check in detail. In conclusion, product classification is important and useful. 2 tips here for you. One is to find the applicable standards, and another one is to use the standards correctly. China has various types of standards. the definition of some food categories is bigger. Most of the standards are in Chinese, so of course it is not friendly to those who are not familiar with the Chinese language. Maybe it is difficult, but we also need to look at the standards more carefully. The different standards has its own rulers for food classification, so we need to classify according to the corresponding standards. And then let's move on to the last part. Currently, I believe you have a basic understanding of the food regulations in China. In this part, I will share some regulatory requirements in detail. In practice, it may help you understand more clearly how to confirm product compliance. All overseas exporters of food products should be registered in GACC. Relatively, it's simple. It's simple. You can fill in some basic information about overseas exporting by yourself. And then secondly, all overseas manufacturers of food products should be registered in GACC. The registration of overseas manufacturers is imported food and has two paths. One is the recommendation for registration by the competent authority of the country. And another is the application for registration by a manufacturer. The formal is for 80 regulated food categories, which conclude health food, food for special dietary uses, and other like meat products. Thirdly, it is about the form of a label. The Chinese label of health food or food for special dietary uses must be printed on the minimum sales package and should not be fixed thereto. The last one, the special food are under strict regulation. As we mentioned in part 3, health food, dairy-based infant formula powder, and FSMP should get the product approval certificate from SAMR. There are also some special requirements on the special conditions. Some foods have a quarantine risk. For example, all dairy products should get state quarantine approval. Regarding the food imported from Japan, some Japanese companies are forbidden to import any food to China. So it's necessary to check its compliance about the place of origin. Regarding the endangered species, endangered species declaration is needed before import. So, for example, the sturgeon caviar is needed to the endangered species declaration. In addition to state quarantine approval, some products with high quarantine risk should get the inspection and quarantine permit from GACC. For example, the pasteurized milk. Here, I just present some common pre-marketing access requirements. We need to look at the corresponding laws and regulations and check their compliance case by case. I collected data on imported food failure in the year 2022. 2,820 batches of food products in total were rejected by China customs. and have been returned or destroyed. And here I'm showing the top 9 types of failure reasons for importation. The issues regarding the product in nature, including product parameters about quality specification, product label, and the usage of raw materials. The sum of these 3 reasons is up to 53%. It's more than half. But these issues can be avoided in advance. Therefore, I will focus on these 3 issues in detail and share how to avoid this non-compliance risk. This part, compliance parts, can be divided into 3: the ingredients, the label, and the product technical requirements. At first is ingredients compliance. We need to realize that every ingredient to use needs a legal basis in China. Here we need to the skill we learned in part 1. We need to find the corresponding regulations or standards to support the legal use of a certain ingredient or additive. We collect the legal basis we usually use, and we are listed here for your reference. Some lists are the positive list, some are negative list. If a certain substance is not on this list, we may need to know more details about these substances and check in detail case by case. Let's try some cases. I select some real cases of importation failure. This is a solid beverage, also called a powdered drink. We found the leach is included in Chinese pharmacopoeia, the negative list. So they are rejected to import to China. Then how about these 4 ingredients? Propolis, rutin, deallulose, and soy isoflavone. They are commonly used in food in some countries, but all of them are not permitted to use in food currently in China. And then another failing case, the biscuit is fortified with iron and vitamin D. These 2 nutrients can be used in biscuit, but in compliance point is the added amount of iron and vitamin D. Another case is pastry. Irisylozane can be used in candy and chocolate and some other products, but not in pastry. So the in-compliance point is the use scope of this food additive. GB 14880 and GB 2760 stipulate the substances we can use and the limitation of the added amount, and also the applicable food categories. So please check all use conditions stipulated. Essentially, ingredient check is to figure out what specifically is added into what type of food and how much was indeed added. The legal basis is important. On one hand, we should find all applicable legal bases to check. On the other hand, we should check all requirements under the corresponding legal basis. In addition, if you find a substance that has no legal basis and you also think this substance is very variable, the application of novel food or new food additive can be chosen. But safety assessment is necessary for such an application. Also, it's difficult, but it may be very variable for you. The next compliance part is the label. The requirements are very detailed and are very error-prone. According to the provisions of food safety law and its implementation regulation, China's food label legal system is mainly divided into three aspects: the food additive, and food-related products. Among them, food labeling is the most widely used, as it is generally introduced to customers directly. Food labels are divided into pre-packaged and non-pre-packaged food according to different package rules. GB 7718 is a general standard for the label of pre-packaged food. The nutritional label involved in the label needs to conform to GB 28050 general rules for nutritional labeling of pre-packaged food. Today, we are going to focus on the pre-packaged foods. In addition, in terms of food for the special dietary uses, the GB 13432 applies to the label of this type of product. And some product standards has some special provisions on labeling, such as the pure milk, GB 25190, sterilized milk. The product standard stipulates that the main display panel needs to mark with the words pure milk. There are also some special provisions for the labeling in other regulations. So when the development of the labels, full confirmation is needed to ensure its compliance with all relevant regulations and standards. And then, what are the mandatory items on the label of imported? Here, I list 8 items: the food name, ingredient list, and other 8 items. I will talk about all of them later. Here is an example of general food, not food for a special dietary use. It is a flavored solid beverage. All of these contents are mandatory to label according to the GB 7718. We can find this label. On this label, the product name, ingredient list, storage condition, production date and shelf life, place of origin, name, address, content, and of the importer, and the net weight and nutritional information. These are mandatory to label. And this is a powdered drink and need to mix with water and then drink. So generally, a consumption method is necessary. In the other aspects, PQQ is approved novel food with special labeling requirements. So for this product, the unsuitable group should be labeled when the product uses the PQQ as an ingredient. This product is an imported food with a special labeling requirement. So for this product, the JCCA registration number of the overseas manufacturer should be labeled. Many solid beverages are pretended to be special foods with misleading claims. This disturbs the normal order of this market. So since the year 2022, some categories of solid beverages, including flavored solid beverages, have been required to mark such reminder content. It says that This product cannot replace some special foods, including food for special medical purpose, infant and young children formula, and health food. This part is about the 5 principles of food label. First, the label should be clear, prominent, and durable. It should make consumers easy to identify and read. These are the quality requirements for food labels. Secondly, the label should be accessible and science-based. Any content of feudalistic, superstition, porno, debasing other products, all unscientific content should be forbidden. Here are the normative requirements for content. Thirdly, it should remain true and accurate, should not introduce food to consumer with fake, exaggerated, misleading words, graphic, and other methods, and should not misguide consumers with font size or color verification. This is a requirement for the authenticity of the food label to protect the rights and interests of the consumer. For example, a drink made of water, sugar, orange juice, and flavoring, but orange juice cannot be its product name, as its real attribute is an orange juice drink. In another violent situation, the words orange juice are very striking through using eye-catching colors, but the word drink is not easy to recognize. It's easy for consumer to misunderstand that this product is orange juice rather than the orange juice drink. The fourth, it should not present words, graphic, or marks that will either directly or implied pose a misleading impression of the product with another product. For example, the vitamin C content of a modified milk powder is equivalent to that of 3 orange. So this claim is okay. However, if it states that the milk powder is equivalent to 3 oranges, it would mislead the consumer that all of nutritional content of modified milk powder is as same as that of 3 oranges. The fifth, any content related to the function of disease prevention and treatment should not be stated or implied. Health function should not be labeled on the label of non-health food in China. This is the most commonly used basic requirement, and it's easy to cross the red line when general foods want to sell themselves with some special health claims. For these provisions, there are also relevant requirements in other laws and regulations, such as anti-unfair competition law and the food safety law. There are some prohibited items on the labels. Food labeling is also a kind of advertisement, so it is also regulated by the advertisement law. We need to pay attention to some contents prohibited in the advertisement law. We summarized them into 5 aspects. First is about national image and public interest. Second is about the superlative, an expression which always involves unfair competition. The third is about individual rights. Fourth is about social order or moral. The last is about national resource or environment. For example, the Chinese national flag and the national anthem cannot be presented on the label, except for the items listed in the advertisement law. There are some other regulations. According to the food labeling regulation, the RMB cannot be shown on the food label. It's also important to note that when using the flags of other countries, you may make sure that the laws and the regulations of other countries allows you to use them. According to the trademark law, the claim of a well-known trademark is also not permitted to show the trademark special. I can't list all of them here, so if you have any concerns about certain words or image, please be sure to check the related legal basis. Then the requirements for label forms. First of all, labels should not be separated from food or its content. So the product tips card separated from the product cannot be belonged to the food label. Things like this are regulated by advertisement law. As for the label content, it needs to be directly marked on the minimum sales unit. That is the package in which is sold. The label information on the package needs to conform with GB 7718. If you want to use Chinese words that are rarely used, you'd better check whether they are in the list of general standard for Chinese character. Of course, you can also choose pinyin or minority languages, and also you can use foreign language or traditional Chinese. It's noted that the font size of words in other languages should not be larger than the corresponding Chinese characters. In the aspect of font height, there are requirements for mandatory items. The font height should be at least 1.8 millimeter. However, this requirement can be exempted if the maximum surface area is not larger than 35 square centimeter. Then the last compliance matter, technical requirements. Generally, we can find the detailed requirements in corresponding product standards. Technical requirements generally include sensory, physical, chemical parameters, contaminant limit, mycotoxin limits, pesticide residue limit, or microorganism limit. The last 4 types of parameters should look at both product standards and the corresponding general standards. In total, tips of similar to this of ingredient requirements when you find all applicable legal basis and use the legal basis correctly, and then check all points in detail. Please allow me briefly introduce our company service about the food part. We provide a one-stop food compliance service from research and development to a product launch. We hope to help you turn regulatory compliance into a competitive edge. In detail, we can help you deal with special food registration or notification, new substance registration, that is like novel food and new food additive, and also general food compliance like ingredient review and labeling review. The custom clearance is also an important step. We also provide provide this service to help you import successfully. Well, here comes to the end of my speech. I present here our content, the email, the telephone, our website, and also my LinkedIn account. If you have any problem or questions, feel free to contact us. I hope this webinar gives you some useful ideas. Then let's move on to the QA section.
Well, thank you so much, Daisy, for your very informative presentation. So actually, we have a very good question from our audience. So the question is regarding the food products via CBEC cross-border e-commerce. Do the foreign manufacturers need to be registered in China?
The CBEC is a special terminal. There are no such requirements in the current regulation, but in the future it may be changed because the government is thinking of the fairness. The GACC registration of the foreign manufacturers may also be necessary for CBEC in the future to reduce the fairness impact on the general trade. That's all.
If you have any further questions, please feel free to send us to info@zmuni.com. We will come back to you as soon as possible. And once again, thank you for joining us. And we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you at our next upcoming webinar. Thank you so much. Okay, bye.